to Taylor Happens, Finals Happen to Taylor, and today I'm going to do a video on my study abroad experience and some tips for you guys who are thinking about doing a study abroad or want to do a study abroad. So let's get into it. I'm just going to start off with like how my experience was because I know every experience is kind of different. So I studied abroad in Spain for 3 months, which is like just a whole semester, and I had a roommate and I had a host mom. So in the place they were staying, there was like 3 or 4 rooms, and I had my own room, and my roommate had her own room, and we just lived with the host mom. And so that way we just like walked to class all the time. We were pretty close, and honestly, I liked it that way because I got to practice my Spanish more because we were in Salamanca, Spain, and so I got to just every day just talk to her, and then I learned a lot better that way than just going to class and doing things there. So I definitely appreciated the host mom experience. I know some people do apartment style or just in a dorm, things like that. I think exchange is different than study abroad, but some people live in a dorm. So I think living with the host mom was a good experience, and I learned a lot from just living with her. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the tips, and my first tip is to put money on your card. I had $200, I think, in $200 US, and I went to exchange it, and they gave me back 140. So basically, I spent $60 to get 140 back, and that was a lot of my money gone. It's just a lot simpler to just go to the ATM and put your card in, and say you want to pull $100, you probably have to pay 10, but that's a lot better of a deal than just kind of like exchanging. The exchange rates are kind of high. And then another thing you can do is also order euros beforehand. That's also a lot cheaper. I was lazy and did not do that. I was like, I'm fine, it's okay, I'll just exchange it later. But I definitely recommend that you order euros or that you just withdraw from your card. My next tip is that you don't have to spend a lot. I was there for 3 months and I spent maybe $600, $700, and that does not include my paying for check bags both ways. But I would say you don't have to save that much. Like, I think roughly $1,000 to $1,200 is enough money, really, at least for Spain, because it's pretty cheap over there, and I did shop a lot. So I definitely think you don't have to save so much money, like 6 grand, unless you're going on multiple trips. We already had trips in our program, so we didn't really have to do that. We just spent money really on like tapas, which are like $1. Drinks or like wine and stuff was like $2. Everything was super cheap over there, so I didn't need to spend that much money. So yeah, you don't need to save that much money for at least 3 months, but obviously if your trip is longer, you probably double that number, etc., etc. You just have to know how much you like to spend or not. If you want to buy a whole bunch of souvenirs, you probably want to bring some more money, but I'm not a souvenir person, and when I shopped, the clothes were pretty cheap in general, and I didn't buy too much. So I definitely say just bring how much you think you're going to spend for. My next tip is do not overpack. I overpacked and I looked crazy with my big suitcase, my medium-sized suitcase, and my carry-on and a backpack going through the airport, and it was literally ridiculous. So I would definitely say you can just like for me, what really helped me was I had packing cubes, and so I had like a 5-pack that I ordered from Amazon, and so it was the big size, medium, and then 2 small ones, and then it came with a shoe bag, and that worked pretty well for all my clothes. And then I also had those like Ziploc bags or something that you just push the air out or suck the air out, and that helped really well with my sweaters. So it's definitely important just to pack smart. And I would also say you'd have to pack like basic clothing, stuff that you can layer, stuff that you can wear a million times, because I brought like 4 dresses and I didn't even wear any. I don't think I wore any of them. Maybe one of them I wore, and they were all special print, and I couldn't wear them with a lot of things. So just wear stuff that you can wear a lot of times with a lot of different other things, and just like layer it up. I think that's really important. My next tip is to learn about the country prior to. I would check out the weather. I would check out the kind of food they have, the kind of how the people are. Maybe if you need to get some shots for the area because of the diseases or sicknesses going around, things like that. You should probably look those things up just so that when you get there, it's not a big culture shock, and it's easier for you to just adapt to where you're about to live. My next tip is just to study common phrases or vocabulary. As for me, wish I studied more about vocabulary for domestic kind of conversation, like when we're in the house, where I'm going, showering, going to bed, doing dishes, stuff like that. I wish I learned more of that kind of vocabulary, or just at least brushed up on it a little bit more, because in class I would do like literature, and that's helpful. Reading is helpful to learn a language, but it just didn't do that much, and I wish I kind of like practiced all the other stuff because I was talking with my host mom every day, and that would have been more helpful than going to class and just kind of like going over literature and difficult verbs. Like the basic conversation verbs were really important for me to brush up on, so I definitely recommend doing that. Okay, my next tip has to do with the phone. So a lot of people on my trip got a phone plan. I did not. I had T-Mobile at that time, and so I had I had free international texting, so I was fine. And I also downloaded Viber and WhatsApp, and those two apps were really good for, I think it's free Wi-Fi texting and calling. And they're not completely reliable because you're not always gonna have Wi-Fi, or your Wi-Fi is spotty. But if you really think you can just get through with that, I would definitely recommend those two. But if you know something a little bit more reliable, then I would definitely recommend getting a phone plan when you get over there. And honestly, they're pretty cheap. They're not expensive whatsoever, and they don't have like contracts that you have to stay in or anything like that. Speaking of phones, my next tip is to download. Usually iPhones come with the maps already on it, but you can also download Google Maps. And I think a map is really important because you don't really know where you're kind of going for the most part, so it helps you get around without having to worry about calling people like where I'm supposed to go, where I'm supposed to be. And it's really smart. Also, getting a map for the area you know you're going to be in is also helpful, or just downloading an app or something for the bus route. That's even better. So those are really important. And my next tip for downloading is music. For some reason, one day I had downloaded all this music, and one day I woke up and we had a weekend trip, and all my music was undownloaded for some reason. And I was so sad because I really wish I had music that day. So download music, download movies. But one thing I will say is the Netflix overseas, at least in Spain, was not the same as the Netflix in the US. I had downloaded Jane the Virgin, the 5th season, and they didn't have that in Spain. So when I went over there, it didn't even show up nothing where it just said there's an error. And then I was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine in Spain, and I downloaded those episodes. And then when I came back, I couldn't watch them. So I was like, okay. So yeah, just a quick tip is that Netflix is not the same there as it is in the U.S. Another great tip is to explore outside of where you study. Luckily for my group, we had trips already put in our program that we were going to, like, every 2 weeks. Actually, we had a trip on the weekend, and we'd go to different spots in Spain. And then one time we went to Paris, actually, and so that's great. But if you don't have that kind of experience, I would definitely say save a good amount of money to probably go to a trip outside of where you study, a trip or two. And I think it's really worth it because you kind of get to maximize your experience, just because trains and buses are pretty cheap, and you get like really cheap just because trains and buses are pretty cheap, and you can get a pretty cheap flight, So at least in Europe, it's easy just to bounce around pretty quickly for a little bit of money. So I definitely recommend going outside of where you study and planning a trip. Okay, my next tip is be alert. Pickpocketing is real. Usually in the major cities, where I studied at was kind of like a small city and small town vibes at the same time, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But regardless, I was alert all the time, and I made sure that I knew exactly who was around me, what was happening, things like that, because people will take your wallet if your bag is open. So you need to make sure that your things are secured, they're in front of you. Don't put your bag on the floor. Don't put it behind you when you're sitting in your purse or anything. Make sure it's in front of you and that you can see if anybody's trying to grab and take some money, because people are professionals down there. They really sit there and watch you, where you're going, what you're doing, and how you're acting. So especially because there's a lot of tourists, you have to be very, very careful with that. Okay, I got 4 more tips. So this tip is definitely pack enough adapters. I had a weird adapter, and it was like this big, and it had 2 slots for American style like plugs or whatever, and it broke like in the first 2 weeks, I think, and I didn't have another adapter. So I suggest you bring 2 minimum, and then bring a third one, just because I had multiple things I needed to plug in. I had a lot of products, like my phone, my watch, my laptop, things like that. So just make sure you bring more than 1 adapter, because it probably will break. And I know they have stores over there, but it's just easier when you already have it. You have to go find one, and no one's trying to hustle you to pay more for one. This is a very, very important tip. I would definitely say you need to bring extra copies of your passports and all your IDs and stuff like that. All those important documents that you have to bring overseas, I would bring extra photos, take a picture of it, all that, because in case someone steals it, in case it gets lost, things like that, you want to make sure that you have extras, because say you're going out of the country and you don't have your passport, what are you going to do? Or say you lose it while you're outside of the country and you come back in or try to come back in and you can't because you don't have any form of the proper form of identification. So definitely make sure that you have extra copies and just put it in a safe place. So FOMO is real, y'all. You are gonna want to go out every night. Well, not every night, but every weekend with everybody. Go do everything. Go to every place. But you can get burnt out really quickly and also get sick easily if you're just doing too much. Your body can't take it because it's not used to it. So I would say definitely maximize your time, but you don't have to go out every night. Some nights can be chill nights with everybody. Everybody can relax, just hang out. Because in my group, some people just went out every weekend, and they could do that. But I personally could not, and I did not, because I would just go. I was so tired all the time, and so I didn't want to get sick. So I had to make sure I prioritized my health, and I just stayed in some nights, and I definitely don't regret that. So I know FOMO is real, but it is okay to chill. That really rhymed, kind of, sort of. Yeah. No. Okay, my last tip is to take lots of pictures. I'm not a picture person personally, but even when I was going to places that were not that exciting, I made sure to take pictures with my friends because I wanted to remember being with them. And when you look back at it, it makes you smile. It's great to look back at when you went to these certain places and hung out with these people, and just the memories are really great. So it's important to just take lots and lots of pictures. Okay guys, that is it for my video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!